Thanks for staying with us right here on Sunrise as we continue this Tuesday morning. And now we've been talking to you about this conversation. Going through a divorce is emotionally and financially taxing for both parties involved. It is a process that should be resolved and finalized as soon as possible. Unfortunately, that is not always the case. Now, going through the legal side of divorce is just as painful as making the decision to do it. Here to talk us through what exactly a divorce entails is attorney Elanie Du Toit, and you at home can be part of our conversation by giving us a call on 011-447-1742 or 011-447-1620. Alternatively, you can also share your thoughts with us on our Facebook and Twitter pages, and we'll be looking at some of those comments as well this morning. Elanie, thanks very much for joining us this morning. Now, ideally, when people get married, you know, divorce is the last thing that they're thinking about.
Absolutely.
And then when that moment comes, you know, true colors sort of like show up. That's what people say. They say, I really got to see her or him for who or, you know, who or what she is. If that's
definitely correct.
So what are the basic steps, the things that I need to know about going through a divorce?
Well, first of all, once you decide to take the step to get a divorce, then the first thing I think you should do is to consult an attorney or a legal representative. They will then help you through the process. The first thing that you need to do is you need to get a settlement agreement entered into between the parties. The settlement agreement will entail, if there are kids involved, the care and contact of the kids, first and foremost, the maintenance of the kids, and then also the division of any assets and liabilities that is part of the marriage.
Okay, so what informs this settlement agreement? Like what should be in the settlement agreement?
Well, basically you set out the care and contact of the children, who takes care of the kids with their day-to-day basic needs, and also the other partner who does not have primary residence with the children, the contact and the amount of contact that he or she will have with the children, as well as the maintenance of the kids, which means the amount to be paid every month for the school fees, the medical fees, the stationery, extramural activities, as well as the assets that need to be divided, assets and liabilities for that matter.
Okay. So now, what are the most common reasons in South Africa for couples to divorce?
Well, the most common reasons are first and foremost communication or lack thereof. Then you get abuse, being it physical, emotional, psychological, or even financial abuse. Social media plays a big role in divorce
in the recent time. Okay,
yes.
So in the communication, is communication about what?
Well, communication, one of the parties might not communicate well in terms of finances, for instance, or in terms of how the kids are being parented. So if there's not a good communication, then one of the parties might start to feel lonely or isolated, and that will mean that a divorce is imminent.
Okay.
In that case.
So how do you determine who, you spoke about that earlier on in the settlement agreement, who gets what, you know, and how? But before we even get to that, isn't that though informed by the type of marriage contract that you have?
Well, you enter into a contract prior to your marriage. You can either be married in community of property, or you can be married out of community of property with an antenuptial agreement. It depends on if you are married out of community of property with an antenuptial agreement, whether you are married with the accrual system or without the accrual system. If you are married in community of property, your joint estate will be divided equally between both parties. If you are married out of community of property without the accrual system, then your separate estates will will be retained by both the parties with its assets and liabilities. If you are married out of community of property with the accrual system, then whatever assets were gained after the conclusion of the marriage will then be equally divided between the parties.
But in most cases, when people don't have those contracts, what happens?
Well, then it means that you are automatically married within community of property.
Okay.
And that means that you have a joint estate with its assets and liabilities, which will be shared 50-50.
Okay. So now, in case where people are simply living together, cohabitation in this case, and how do people come to agreements, and what determines that, you know, this should be treated as like a separation or a divorce of some sort?
Well, cohabitation in South African law does not enjoy the same rights and responsibilities as a civil union or a civil marriage. Therefore, there is no rights or responsibility between the partners in a cohabitation partnership unless the parties agree to get into a cohabitation agreement, which will then set out the finances or the assets, the division of the assets, or even maintenance when such a partnership cease to exist.
In a case of a customary marriage, does it have the same rights as a civil union?
It does, in fact, yes. African customary marriages do share the same rights and responsibilities as a civil union or a civil marriage.
Okay, so what determines a African customary marriage, like, so that that allows it to be treated as a civil union?
An African customary marriage has to be registered with the Home Affairs,
So
as to be enforced.
As a customary?
Well, not as a customary marriage, but to receive the rights and responsibilities under the South African law.
So if lobola is paid and I go to Home Affairs and I register there, then that qualifies as a civil union.
Yeah,
but
customary
marriage. So if lobola is paid and I haven't gone to Home Affairs, what is that?
Well, then you do not have the same rights and responsibilities as a civil union or a civil marriage, which means that you don't have the right to inherit or to receive half of your husband's property in the joint estate.
The rights and responsibilities of each party, you know, how do you make sure that my side is taken care of and your side is taken care of? What are the things that I need to know?
Well, if the parties cannot agree on a settlement, then obviously the court will make a sound decision based on the evidence led as well as the South African law. They will apply that to you know, because there is no winner in a divorce matter. So to make sure that both parties receive equal rights, the law will be applied.